Welcome to episode number 146 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host tonight, Jason Sayeda. And in this episode, we are going to review the Eagles, I don't know what you want to say, but annihilation of the Kansas City Chiefs last week, 40 to 22. We will get into that in a second. Before we get into the show, our tonight's episode is sponsored by Giovannina's Pizza. Tried the rest, now try the best, Giovannina's. Tommy is under the weather tonight and cannot make it, but we do have our other two usual co-hosts, and the first is Jimmy the Chalk. What's up, Chalky?
What's up? Any parade specials on Friday with Giovannina's or?
I haven't heard any, but we will put it out. Maybe you could put out something if you hear.
Yeah, well, we'll hit up X, Twitter, whatever it is now if they let us know about anything.
We could post on Twitter if we get something. And then our other host is Meeker, Chris Meeker.
Good evening, people. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. So, all right. I have a very simple analysis of this game. So I'll go last. I'll let you guys go. I think there's a very simple explanation of what happened, but I'll throw out to Chalky first. Chalky, give us your thoughts on the game.
The simplest explanation is on the one side of the ball, the Chiefs' offensive line couldn't block anybody because the Eagles rushed 4 all game and made Mahomes run around. And on the opposite side, Spags dialed up a game plan that severely limited Barkley, and Hurts made throws when he had to. And I don't know that they overloaded too much to stop Barkley, that it made some of the other stuff, but obviously the Eagles made some good play calls. Moore made some good play calls. Hurts picked up the blitz for the most part. The interception was a bad throw for sure, poor choice, but between making reads and Barkley, he didn't come in as being known as like a great blocking back, but by the end of the season, Barkley had really picked it up as far as making blocks and picking guys up. And it's funny, aside from whatever I said last week, like by Sunday morning, I was like, it was like eerily calm. Like I texted Tommy, a couple people, and I said, this sounds dumb, but I really think it's going to be a 2-score game at least. Like I thought the Eagles were the better team, but there's the Mahomes factor, which is what you said last week, Jason, is you can never count them out. And look, they got out there, and I won't go through all the stats. I'm sure Meeker's got some of the stuff, but Eagles had 24 points in the first half. Kansas City had 23 total yards on offense, and they didn't cross midfield until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And it was like Mahomes, to quote Sam Darnold, he was seeing ghosts. Like, just they had him all off. And honestly, I didn't expect a game like this with the pass rush, but this is kind of the game I thought we might have saw 2 years ago when you had a team that set or came close to setting a single season sack record, and they couldn't get any pass rush in that game for the field or whatever reason. And it wasn't a perfect game, but it was pretty close. And the guys that everybody came to play, nobody had a bad game, and some people had the games of their career probably. Avonte Maddox comes off the bench after weeks and almost gets a pick 6. So everybody made plays, and it's weird. For you guys, you maybe you can relate. For me as a Philly sports fan, there's very few championships, but there's never been like a championship scenario like that. The closest thing I can think of would the Sixers sweeping the Lakers, but those games were all pretty close. But by 3-0, you knew they're going to win the series, but it could take a couple games. And the DeJean interception, I was like, okay, I don't want to say it's over, but it didn't feel like they had anything left. And then after that, but as a fan, it's an incredible feeling. It's a weird feeling the way it played out, because it's like we don't win championships, period, and we certainly don't win them like that. So they fired on all cylinders, and credit to them for being prepared to play, close to a perfect game.
Yeah, Meager.
Well, I was going to say what you said there, Chalky, is that, football is funny in that way because it is only one game. You don't have 4 games. You don't have to win 4 games to win a championship. So you can just go out there and completely annihilate your opponent. And that's all you're really going to remember because there's no other games to remember other than the end, right? So, yeah, look, what can you say? Complete domination on both sides of the ball, and not to overlap some of the things Chalky said, but to me, what's surprising is that the one aspect of the game that the Eagles weren't dominant in was what they have been dominant in all year, and that was the running game. And it's not like the Chiefs were selling out to stop the run, like they didn't put 6, 7 men in the box and dare Hurts to throw. I think the only thing Spagnuolo had going for him in the game was a plan to stop Barkley without having to do that. But, Hurts made up for it with the lack of production in the running game with his own legs, Super Bowl record for yards rushing by a quarterback. Hurts had a really good game, I thought. Only one mistake that Chalky talked about that no one's going to really remember anyway based on the score and the fact that he's a Super Bowl MVP. He executed well on third down. He had 2 nice throws that I can remember on third and long, the one back shoulder to A.J. Brown and another throw to Smith later on in the game. I said that last week at some point in these playoffs, Hurts would be tested and would have to make big-time throws, and I think he passed the test in this Super Bowl. I give him a lot of credit. But the MVP of the game for us, for me, for you guys, I'm sure, was obviously the Eagles' defense. And Vic Fangio, who had a great day, rushing 4, no blitz, seemingly pressuring Mahomes pretty much on every play and making life miserable for him. And, me and Jason were talking about this on a text that you're not on, Chalky. What could Andy Reid have done to adjust to this? And if you ask me what he could have done, if you're getting beat every single play, every matchup, I don't think there's a lot he could have done because it's going to be game over at that point. But I think they could have tried to run themselves out of that situation and establish some sort of semblance of a running game, which they basically abandoned early on, other than a few attempts in the beginning of the third quarter. Perhaps move the protection, let Mahomes roll out, and when he knew his guys were overmatched, try and create a little bit more time for Mahomes. But it seemed like whatever they tried or would have tried just wasn't going to work on this day. As it seemed to have been true all year, everyone on defense contributed. The total team effort, in my opinion, the Chiefs looked shocked. Mahomes looked shell-shocked, and no matter how terrible the line played, he certainly wasn't helping it out and contributed to their offensive problems himself. Look, the Eagles were a better team coming into this game. I kind of talked about it last week, but I think there was a doubt because this is the Chiefs, going for a three-peat with an all-time coach and an all-time quarterback who always finds a way to win these close games. But I also think the Chiefs weren't an all-time team this year. I just don't think so. They were pulling out games by one score constantly all year. Didn't look real impressive, and it kind of caught up to them. They got pistol whipped in this game, to put it lightly. Could they bounce back after this loss, or is this dynasty over? Maybe, but it looked pretty bad Sunday night. That brings me to, I feel, is the other MVP, which should definitely be mentioned, and that's Howie Roseman. Going back to the trade for A.J. Brown through the draft with drafting Nolan Smith and Carter to this year's draft, acquiring Mitchell and DeJean, signing free agents, CJ, Bond, and of course Barkley, hiring Fangio, all these things that he did, he deserves a lot of credit. And, now he's got his second Super Bowl. So by the score, it wasn't the biggest blowout in Super Bowl history, but it may have been, if not the most dominant performance I've seen in recent memory and the most unexpected because of what I said, with the Chiefs looking to three-peat with the all-time quarterback, the all-time coach. To me, it will go down as the best game, and I don't say this lightly, the best game the Philadelphia Eagles may have ever played on the biggest stage. So all credit to them.
All right, so for me, the analysis was very easy. Absolute domination by the defensive line. It's just absolute domination. Just overmatched the Chiefs' offensive line. 47% pressure rate, not one blitz. So the Chiefs ran 42 plays. On 39 of them, the Eagles rushed 4 or had a 4-man front. On 3 of them, they rushed 3 or had a 3-man front. Not once did they rush 5 guys. 16 pressures, 6 sacks. Now, I mean, I could go on and on about, about the first half, the DVOA. The Eagles had the best defensive DVOA in the first half in any Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they had the third best through the third quarter. Now, the fourth quarter was garbage time. So I don't even count the fourth quarter. So the only teams that were better were the 2013 Seahawks and the 89 49ers defensively through 3 quarters. And you just do the math. Like, it's so easy of an analysis to me that I don't think quarterback play on either side of the ball really, there's much to say about it in this game. If you're rushing 4 guys, do the math in your head. On the offensive side, you got 5 linemen, you got 1 quarterback, right? So right there, that's 6 guys. So the most you're going to have in running routes is 5 guys. Now, they probably had a back in the backfield blocking, or they had Kelsey staying in the block. So for the majority of the game, there's 4 guys running routes against 7 defenders, and the 4 guys that are rushing for the Eagles are just bull rushing the lineman back into the quarterback. There's not one quarterback who has ever played the game of football who's going to be successful in that game. Now, I know Mahomes got out of the pocket and made a couple of bad throws, but he's under siege the whole game. Like, that plays with your head. You start playing faster. Like, there's no quarterback who would have done well in that circumstance. So did Mahomes have a bad game? Yeah, he did. Was there a reason? Absolutely. And again, you can't name me one quarterback who has ever played the game who would have done well in that circumstance. So on the other side of the ball.
Let me just interject to this point you're talking about. I think with a guy like Mahomes, because he just, because of the way he plays the game, tried to take it on himself to just make things happen. I mean, and although it didn't work out, he didn't really put himself in a better position by trying to do that. And I think Andy was also doing that, saying, look, we're just going to continue to pass. We'll get out of this somehow. At some point, we're going to be able to make things work. And it just didn't work. And when they abandon the run in situations like that, it's even easier for these guys to get to him. So he doesn't help himself by trying to be Superman sometimes.
Could Reed have run a little more in the first half? Yeah. Did he have the players to do it? No, he didn't. He don't have running backs that are going to be successful. They just don't have those guys, and the line wasn't blocking runs either. So it didn't matter. There's nothing Reed could have did really that's going to change when you have 4 guys dominating a game like that, and your offensive line isn't competitive. There's just nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. Now, on the other side of the ball, before I get to the other side of the ball, absolutely ridiculous. And going forward, keep this in mind when betting Super Bowl MVPs. It's absolutely ridiculous that Sweat did not win MVP in the game. And if not Sweat, Milton Williams. It's absolutely ridiculous that these guys didn't win MVP. And if that's the case, going forward, whatever team you think is going to win, bet the quarterback to win MVP.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to, like we were talking about last week, whatever. The last defensive MVP was Von Miller. And I think he had a safety and a touchdown and a couple sacks. And Manning did nothing. It was a terrible offensive game. So you really need to have that kind of game. And Hurts had 3 touchdowns or whatever, 4, whatever it was, including the rush, 78 yards. It's all, and Tommy said it before because we know somebody that has a vote or has had a vote, and it's like they try to direct you towards that. Like they want the quarterback to win. So you need like 4 sacks and a touchdown and it to be a close game, or like it's tough. So it's going to go to the quarterback. So yeah.
All right. So offensively, on the offensive side of the ball, like I had said, I mentioned I thought that Spagnuolo would key on Barkley. He did. He didn't load the box. He did not load the box. He was playing 2 safeties, but he was run blitzing. Spagnuolo actually had a pretty decent game plan. I think what happened was now Hurts made throws. I said Hurts was going to have to throw the ball. He did. He made the throws he had to. Um, but I just think, again, you go back to the domination on defense. Now that the Chiefs are going 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. Chiefs defense back on the field, back on the field. It's they're on the field the whole game. The Eagles are getting the ball in good spots on the field, good field position. I don't really blame the Chiefs defense really at all in the game. It was Chiefs offense versus Eagles defense. And one thing I'll say, this game proved how important both lines are in the sport. You could say what you want about Patrick Mahomes. Is he a top 3 quarterback of all time? If he's not, he's top 5. Look how bad he looked in that game, right? And why? Because the defensive line dominated their offensive line. So I don't know what else to say. I think it was very easy. I don't want to downplay Hurts. He played well. I'm getting ridiculous texts about talking about him in a Hall of Fame trajectory and all this stuff after this game, which is ridiculous to say. He played well. He didn't deserve to win MVP because somebody on the defense should have won MVP. But I can't take anything away from the way he played in the game. So, total domination. I guess the best team won. And that's that. If we don't have anything else to talk about the game, maybe we could just get into some thoughts about, some obstacles the Eagles are going to have in 2025, because it ended very well, but I don't know if it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, next year. Thoughts on anything else in the game, or you guys want to jump into 2025 Eagles?
The only thing Chalky kind of said it with the MVP thing. Which to me is really unimportant. But in the end,
if you're betting,
it's important if you got money on it.
If you got money on it, why did you have Josh Sweat?
Well, I bet Sweat. He was still like 5-1, like early in the third quarter.
So in game bet.
Yeah, he was 5-1.
Okay.
I was like, this is ridiculous.
I think with this game, especially because everyone on defense contributed, it's hard to give it to one guy, versus the impact.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, the impact that the quarterback has, and obviously score points too, and would be the reason why he got MVP. Did he deserve it? He didn't deserve it comparatively speaking to the defense, like as a whole.
To me, the way I looked at the game was there's a clear reason why they dominated the game.
Oh, right? Yeah, 100%.
And it wasn't Jalen Hurts throwing for 400 yards with 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it was just hard, to give it to one guy. Like, if you can give an MVP and spread it amongst the entire line, of course, do that. But it's just difficult to give to a defensive lineman when you have 6 sacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Sweat had 2.5, Williams had 2 with the forced fumble, so they're close with that. And it's like you pick one or the other. We'll go with the quarterback. And
then even Sweat though, like on the Bourne interception, that was Sweat. Sweat bull rushed the guy into Mahomes as he threw it, and he caused that interception. So
Yeah, and Mahomes didn't see DeJean at all, or no, or was that the second interception? That
was the Bourne interception.
Bourne interception. Right, that's the one. Right. Yeah, and it's like I don't want to. I agree that you don't necessarily want to kill the Chiefs' defense because it was 10-0 with 6 minutes left in the second quarter, and then 17-0, which was off of the DeJean interception, so not the defense's fault. And then Bourne intercepts. Well, I think it was Eagles. Was it the Bourne interception the next drive? Or I thought Eagles might have punted once. They might actually got a punt, and then the Bourne interception was because they punted and they punted the ball down to the 5-yard line, and then Bourne gets the interception, and it's 24-0 at the half before you know it. But every defensive lineman made plays in that game. You're talking about Brush. Nolan Smith, who has arms like a string bean, was bull rushing the left tackle, and it's a Jomo. They all made plays. Brandon Graham only played 15 snaps. He made plays. Yeah,
But you know, it all
Hunt's
stems from-
making plays. So
It all stems from Carter.
yeah.
It
Oh yeah.
all
No,
stems from
absolutely, absolutely. And it's like when you're rushing 4-on-5, right? And I mean, you either, and if you want to put two people on Carter, like you're still beating, you're getting beat like that. Like it's ridiculous. And I mean, there's been, like Mika was saying, there was bigger blowouts in the end.
Yeah.
But a lot of those happened with like second half going off the rails. Like I was looking, I was listening, like you got to go back to that 89 49ers game where they beat Denver 55-10 or whatever to find a game like this where, I mean, it was 34-0 early in the second half. Like
The game was over after Cooper DeJean's touchdown.
yeah, I didn't want to get too far ahead because it's like, okay, well, if Mahomes scores here, they get the ball at the half and it could be 17-14 before you know it. But for all intents and purposes, it was. And then, by the time Smith scores, that was the icing on the cake. But
As an Eagle fan, Chalky, was there any moment in the game where you felt like, this is still a game? Like, I mean, obviously after DeJean's touchdown, did you just basically say, all right, I'm confident now this game is over? Like, with the way that the defense is playing, unless something tragic happens, this is a win.
If it was anybody other than Patrick Mahomes in this league on the other side, I would have felt it was almost 100% locked up after the DeJean interception touchdown. Because it was Mahomes and because Kansas City was going to get the ball, I'm like, look, he's going to get something going. And he almost did. I mean, they had to drive, and I think you were talking about Jason. He rolled out, and he had Brown, and he made a bad throw on third down or whatever. So, and after that, like, okay, halftime 24-0, like, okay, this will be an all-time collapse. But I'm like, wow, 4 touchdowns. I saw him score touchdowns every drive 2 years ago. So, it was the Smith touchdown, obviously, where you're like, okay, it's clearly out of, because now it's a 5-touchdown game. But the DeJean was like, I'm really, like, I didn't want to start taking a victory lap at that point, but I'm like, man, I don't see how this is going to go the other way at this point. And, that was with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. Like, it was crazy.
Well, you look at, like, I don't know how many wins this team has had in the last 2 years, talking about the Chiefs, and a lot of them being really close games. Like, I've never seen the Chiefs be down 17 points, let alone 24 points in any game that I can recall. Like, so we've never seen them have to come back like they would have had to come back in this game. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they quit in the second half, but there was just body language wise, they just looked shocked. Like, what is happening here? Like,
look at. I saw somebody isolate today. Look at some of Kelsey's body language on these plays when Mahomes is running around. He's just kind of like standing there, like watching it, and like he misses a throw, and then he's just like, so.
They just knew that the Eagles' defensive line was too athletic. They were doing stunts. They were doing, there's nothing the Chiefs could do. Again, I'll go back to Mahomes. Simple math. There's 7 defenders, out in coverage. And the Chiefs have 4 guys in routes. I mean, with no time. It's not like Mahomes has time to sit back there in 5 seconds, and he's got like 2 seconds, and people are on.
I mean, look, we're not professional athletes, right? As much as we like to think we could be, or some people, not on this podcast, but other people we know think they could play a couple innings at third base and not be a liability for the Phillies. But like, you're in a championship game, right? How demoralizing can it be when you have an odd man advantage and you're getting your ass kicked every single play? You're a man up and they're getting their way through. It's like, what?
There's nothing. That's why I said there's really nothing.
Yeah,
Andy Reid couldn't do anything.
Pick whatever. I mean, the fact that Mahomes can run a little bit kept it alive. Like, if that's Brady or that's Montana back there, like, they're more like statues. Like, they're going to go down a lot quicker. And it wasn't like, I mean, obviously Mahomes missed some throws, but watch some of those plays. Like, the reason he had to hold it a little bit was because Mitchell had Worthy locked down for the first 3 quarters, and these other guys, they weren't getting open. And then he starts seeing ghosts after that. So there really wasn't. I mean, when you're winning a battle a man short, like, Yeah,
I mean,
you can't do anything with that. You'd have to start running the wishbone or the wildcat every play.
If the pressure was coming off of blitzes, then there's adjustments you
Yeah,
can make.
absolutely.
This pressure was not coming from blitzes. This was just, we're going to send 4 guys and drop 7 guys in coverage, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And with that being said, like early on in the game, if the Eagles knew they were having so much success doing that, you could come up on these receivers, because the one thing I talked about on the last podcast was the Chiefs throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage more than any team in football. I didn't see them try that one time. So like, could they have possibly tried that? Like, hey, Mahomes goes to Andy Reid and says, I don't have a second to throw this ball. You have to put me in a position to throw quick wide receiver screens or something. I don't even think they would have been able to do that, because, Mitchell is playing right up on him. Slay's playing right up on him. Like, how many yards are you going to get? Your wide receiver is going to have to beat that corner and get past him, to be able to get any kind of yardage out of it.
But even with that, like I mean, okay, obviously, like, to my greatest Eagles teams of all time, they just won the Super Bowl in a dominating fashion. So, probably doesn't sound like a compliment, but like, I've never seen an Eagles team tackle anywhere near this good. Like, it wasn't like, other years it's like, okay, you hope somebody hits a guy and then 2 other guys come in and wrap him up and keep him to, like, all these guys, DeJean, Bond, even Burks, like, they're not letting guys get by them. Like, so you might get 2 yards and then it's like you're going down. So just incredible.
The one thing I'll say is, you guys know I never really liked Howie Roseman, but I have to admit, you won a Super Bowl in 2017. Now you win in 2024 with pretty much an entirely different team, right? You have Lane Johnson, and he's an important part of the team. Graham, he played well in the beginning of the year, but he was hurt most of the year. And Elliott, all right, you got a kicker. That's pretty impressive to win a Super Bowl 7 years apart with a totally different team. I have to admit it.
Yeah.
And with him making major mistakes, like Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson, and I think Carson Wentz was a mistake. They wound up trading him and got a lot of draft picks for him. I think that trade was a mistake. And now even this year with Bryce Huff, and they still won a Super Bowl, so he's doing something right.
It's like they say, it takes really 3 years before you can evaluate a draft, I guess. So like, okay, yeah, they swung and missed in Jalen Reagor. And then they, I can remember draft day of 2020, second round, they picked Jalen Hurts. And I texted Tom and I said, did they just not resort their spreadsheet? And they took the next Jalen on the list. Like, why are they taking this guy in the second round? And it turned out to work out. And, but the 21, 22, and 23 drafts, and even 24 this year, they got like almost unprecedented rookie production from these guys they took this year, which you can't expect every year for sure. They all have guys that played a lot and ended up contributing. And you got a guy like Nolan Smith, who like 5 games into the year wasn't giving you anything. And then all of a sudden that D-line coach or whatever got the switch and boom, he's getting in there every game. And, Jordan Davis doesn't end up being maybe the value in that first round, but you get Milton Williams in the 3rd round and you get Njomo in the 7th round. And he's always, he's signing guys, he signs a Hargrave, he signs these other guys that go in and out. So, like, they build that line, and he hits enough that they're competitive. But, look, 9 years he's been back since the Chip Kelly years, and I think it's like seven playoff appearances, 3 Super Bowl appearances, and 2 championships. Like, he swings and misses a lot, but that's a record that is almost unparalleled with GMs in the league.
They don't usually miss on the line, especially offensive line.
Yeah, and then the one, like, I guess, sexy free agent signing was Huff, and he did nothing. Like, so they didn't even.
He's got more money than Barkley, right, per year, or did that was everybody's gonna remember Barkley as a big free agent signing, which is another one I was like, why would they don't need to do that? And hey, I was wrong. They didn't pay him a lot of money, but
my whole thing with Barkley, and we're going to get into that. Let's jump into 2025, I guess. So, 2024 is a great year. They won a Super Bowl. You do have to admit they had injury luck this year. They really did, right? Brandon Graham got hurt. Hurts, I guess, got knocked out for a game. not really a big deal.
Yeah,
But
they stayed healthy all year. That was
they stayed healthy, and their main rivals in the NFC, the Lions
Yeah.
and 49ers, were ravaged with injuries.
Which was the other thing I wanted to say. I mean, just to cap the season, this team was 17-0 in games when Hurts, Brown, and Smith all started and finished the game. So it's good to have. They had injury luck, but though they didn't lose a game when they had all those guys in there and playing, which is kind of crazy when you think about it too.
But for me, like I really equate the 49ers year last year to the Eagles this year, and especially Barkley and McCaffrey, right? Because McCaffrey and Barkley, to me, are similar talents. Both great running backs. Both guys that get hurt. Both guys that are 28 or 29 now, right? Last year, McCaffrey stayed healthy, almost set records. They got to the Super Bowl. They probably should have won. They're one play away from winning the Super Bowl. This year, Barkley's a guy who always gets hurt, stayed healthy, set records. Look what happened, right? Next year, I don't know. Look what happened this year with McCaffrey now. Immediately hurt when the season starts. Never really was healthy the whole year. Same thing, Barkley next year. Who knows? Barkley has a long history of being injured. So you have that. Is it Bourne? What's going to happen with Bourne? Are they going to franchise him? He's going to want money. I mean, and he deserves it. He was one of the best linebackers in football this year. Great signing, but now he wants to get paid. You think they'll franchise him? What's our thoughts on that?
I think he's, they got the list of free agents. So, him, Williams, Becton, there's a couple guys that were big contributors, starters. To me, if I have to order who I go after first, and Meeker can talk more about his previous production, but obviously, is he a one-hit wonder, or is he now the guy that's in the right system because Fangio wanted him and said, I can play him this way? Yeah. Either way, he's the one guy I don't think you at almost all costs you have to keep, especially for next year because Dean is out until whenever. So Dean,
what is it? Does he have a major injury that he might not start the year?
Dean's not going to be ready to start the year. No.
Oh wow.
He's not going to be ready to start the year. He might be like halfway through the year, I think, or something. But he's not going to be ready at the start. So if you don't keep Bourne, then you got two new-ish linebackers playing. And how much? I mean, Dean obviously stayed healthy till the very end of the year, but how much better did Dean play this year because Bourne was playing so well next to him? So I would rather not break that duo up. Milton Williams is going to get a ton of money because D linemen get a ton of money. So I would try to go all out to sign Bourne and then franchise Williams. I don't know how that would even work with the cap, if it's even possible. But the Eagles build through the line, and so they've brought guys in, and this is apparently a very deep D-line draft. So if you got to let Williams walk, they have not had success with great linebackers for multiple years over time. So you got to take a chance that Bourne is that guy. And if you have to let Williams walk, hope that you can replace him in the draft or that one of these other younger guys is going to be able to step in and give you valuable reps.
Yeah. See, I and I don't want to disparage Williams at all because I think he's a very good player. But I think just like back in the day when Clyde Simmons used to, be great. Okay, why was he great? Because Reggie White was getting doubled and Jerome Brown was almost getting doubled. You know what I mean? So Jalen Carter makes that whole engine run. So I agree with that. If they have to prioritize Zach Bourne over Milton Williams, I'm doing it.
Well, is it the functionality of like how much that's going to cost you, when it comes to linebacker and you're comparing them to whatever is a top 5?
Well, I think both guys are going to want to get paid.
Linebackers don't tend to get paid as much as defensive line, though, like to Chalky's point, right?
Yeah,
so,
I don't want to pull numbers out of my ass and say that this and that, but I mean, I think you're going to get a good D lineman is probably your average good quote unquote D lineman will get a better deal than a great or very good linebacker. Now you're best in the leagues, I mean, Parsons is a hybrid, so it's hard to say those guys, but the Kuechly, if he was still in the league, like those guys would be like top of the line. I mean, for me, it's part of his salary, so I think there's probably a savings there. But the other is that I don't have confidence in the Eagles replacing Bourne at linebacker and finding somebody in the draft or getting lucky, because they got lucky in free agency, really getting him. I think you're just going to have better chance to replace somebody on the D line to take Williams' spot, because Williams wasn't even a true starter for a lot of the time. I mean, he was getting starter reps by the end of the year. But I think linebacker and having some people that can tackle in the middle, you got Carter on the line, so put somebody else next to him and he'll probably make them look good too.
And what's Vaughn, like maybe 27, 28, like somewhere in that
He's only
range?
4 or 5 years in the league, I think. So
Yeah.
he's
I mean,
young.
I think he's like 27, 28. So maybe look at that situation too. And then depth at linebacker isn't, like you said, especially with Dean being out, if he's not going to start the season or if he's going to be a mid-season. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to keep that guy, and whether you franchise him might have to do with, when you look at the landscape of these linebackers and what they're getting paid, whether it's worth it to do that or just straight up sign him to a new contract. I mean, if you really believe in the guy, why franchise him? If he fits your scheme, why not sign him to 3 years?
Well, if you franchise him, you're basically saying, all right, do it again for me.
I get it.
I think you try for that deal, and if at the last minute you can't get it done, you franchise him so that, Tom Brady has been nothing but effusive in his love over the last couple of games for Zach Bond, so he might go tell, Davis's kid, give him a blank check and get him over here.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you franchise him so that way nobody else. I think you push to sign him for whatever it takes before that goes, and then I don't want to say you franchise Williams, maybe you slap a transition tag on Williams and you let him walk for a couple picks if somebody gives him a big deal. But yeah, you want to get Bond signed before it gets to franchise's last ditch thing, because you don't have time to sign him at that point.
Okay, now here's the next issue for next year. Offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
What are you going to do there? Kellen Moore absolutely deserved to get a head coaching job after the job he did this year. Again, everybody's going to say I'm a Hurts hater and this and that, but for what he did, for what I consider a mediocre quarterback, to do that with the offense, and to be able to pull back plays and stuff because he doesn't see the field, he's not using the middle of the field, to mold your offense around that like he did was unbelievably impressive.
I think, to me, this should be one of the more desirable jobs, right? The question is, do the Eagles go outside like they did with Moore? So they've had success going outside in the sense like Reich comes in from the outside, they get to win the Super Bowl. Sirianni brings Steichen in, they go to Super Bowl. Now Moore comes in. Well, as each one of those guys before has left, they've promoted from inside, and it hasn't worked out as well.
Failed.
Now, I know Sirianni really likes this guy. This is right-hand guy, they say. That would be, is the passing game coordinator, I think. Yeah. So, not that we need another Italian in a place of prominence on the team, but, he would be the internal hire, but, it'd be interesting to see who might want the job or be interested in it externally, because I wouldn't be against going with that. I think it sucks for Hurts because, again, it's stability of not having the same coordinator every year after year, and so it obviously took Moore a little bit to get comfortable and figure out how to use Hurts best, and Steichen really did that his second year when they went to the Super Bowl. So now you're going to bring so that's an argument to keep somebody in the pipeline to be the coordinator. But I think you got to try and stay one step ahead of the league. So maybe bringing somebody else in to give their kind of fresh perspective on how to run the offense. Look, you got 2 stud receivers. You got Barkley. You got the best line or close to it in the league. You can work with Hurts.
I think Spagnuolo kind of gave a little bit of a blueprint, or maybe, because again, what's going to happen? I say this every year. The team that's a hot offense, like last year was the 49ers. The year before was the Eagles. Now it's the Eagles again. All these coordinators now are sitting back and saying, all right, how are we going to stop Barkley next year? All right, Spagnuolo had a pretty good way of stopping him.
Yeah, but you need the players to be able to do it. You look at how the Rams and the other teams, they were putting 7, 8 guys trying to stop Barkley, and they just weren't good enough. So your best defensive teams will have those players, so you could scheme from that. So you can't just do the same thing year after year on offense. But
the problem with putting all those guys in the box is if Barkley breaks a tackle, he's gone.
Right.
If you defend it the way Spagnuolo defended it, now you got guys back there.
And Barkley. I was really thinking, and you're talking about wearing down. I thought the second half we'd see a 50-yard run from Barkley because they'd be in the field so much, and he was breaking like 6 and 8 yard runs, but he never had that really big one. So some teams are like, okay, we're not going to give you the 50-yard run, but if he's ripping off 6 and 8 a clip, it's still going to add up to be the same in the end. But I don't know. Meeker, you jump in. I'm talking too much.
Well, on the subject you're talking about, like with respect to, is there
coordinators
or Spagnuolo have a template to stop Saquon Barkley? I mean, it's just one game. I don't know. Like you said, it's just based on your personnel. Like they chose to do what they did in that game. They still lost, big time. But when it comes to their offensive coordinator, I guess you named the guy that Patullo, right? That's the guy that they might be putting into that position.
Yeah.
So I don't sit here and tell you like a list of offensive coordinators or assistant coaches that are going to be up for an OC job. So I don't really know, but obviously I'd be looking at the teams that have had success with similar type quarterbacks that may have been an assistant, that maybe have a shot, that's their next stepping stone is to an OC if it's external. Otherwise I guess you're going with Patullo.
Yeah.
Or does Sirianni give Reich the chance?
Frank Reich?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. He could, I guess.
Because the bigger name, and he really fell off. He's a guy that was talked about for a head coaching job last year, but Slowick or whatever from Houston got fired.
Slowick's interesting.
And he's going to Miami.
But
he's not going to be. He's not going to be the offensive coordinator.
I don't know why they fired him. I think I was mistaken.
I think there was a disconnect between him and Stroud by the end of the year, from what one of the national guys was saying, and he it was enough that Ryans wasn't going to keep him around. So but that's how fast you can go from like a hot coaching candidate to now you're out of a job and you're taking an assistant doing an assistant job down in Miami, like.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good offensive mind. So, all right, kicker. Probably need a new kicker next year, right? What are you going to do there?
I don't know if they need to. He didn't have a good year.
He had one good game. He's been horrible.
I don't know. But he was excellent coming into this year. Some of these kickers do have some bad years. I'm not sure if you just give up on them. Justin Tucker, I know he's kind of a disgusting human being after reading some of the things about him, but
that's neither here nor there. But it's the same situation.
No, well, the Browns are trading for Justin Tucker, but
my point is, like, do you replace a guy? When is it end for a kicker? Is it having one bad year and you're out?
You can fall off a cliff really quickly as a kicker, right? And you see these guys that are the best in the league. Justin Tucker is arguably the best of all time, and then he was just missing kicks left and right this year.
I think they're both gone, to be honest with
you. So the one thing I did see is that Bo Allen, who's been around the team a lot, says that Elliott was hurt. Like, it wasn't a crippling injury, obviously, but he was not healthy, 100% healthy for like the second half of the year. Whether you believe it or not, I have no proof one way or the other. If it's true, then you could say the Eagles should have replaced him or should have got somebody that's healthy in there, but it would be an explanation of sorts as to why some of those seemingly easy kicks were not going through. But
it's not like he lost his leg. The distance was always there. It's just
no, it wasn't. He lost his leg. He was missing anything that was like over
50.
Yards.
That was how he started the year. He made everything less than 50, and
it wasn't like short. It wasn't coming up short with the kicks. It was the direction of
the accuracy. Yeah.
It's
it's at the bottom of the list of things that I'm looking for. Like, I would be perfectly fine with them riding into the year with Elliott, and then you can you find somebody on the scrap heap if you have to, but that would be bottom list of priorities for me.
And then the last thing I'm going to bring up, which might be the most important, is did you guys take a look at that schedule next year?
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal.
It's unbelievably
It's
brutal.
brutal.
Like, it's outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, you got
What AFC division are they playing next year?
I believe the
West.
West.
Okay.
But you got a first place schedule. You got basically the whole NFC North, right? Look at their records this year. They're all young teams. I mean, Minnesota, we don't know what's going to happen quarterback wise there, but you got Green Bay, who should be better. The Bears are probably going to be a little better than they were.
And you got the
You
Lions.
got all the first place teams.
They want to be the Lions regardless.
Regardless, yeah, but they
The Lions, of course, yeah. You got the Chiefs are going to want revenge. I think that game's in KC. You got Denver. Nick's going to be a year older, getting better. Buffalo, I believe, too. Yeah, Buffalo, right? First place schedule.
if they got if they play the East, yeah.
Automatic. That wouldn't be automatic. They'll throw another.
They play every first place team, no?
No,
No,
they play the first place team in a designated division in the AFC. So I'm looking here. So yes, Buffalo is on the schedule.
Every first place team, and then you get the whole division. So they get the whole AFC West, and then every first place team.
Well, not every first place team in the AFC. They'll get a one. So like in the NFC, you get the first place team in every division. AFC, it rotates to the corresponding team, but just that team, and not everyone, or else it would be like a 20-game schedule.
So
Right,
then
so it wouldn't be particularly if it's the Bills, then it wouldn't be the Ravens, and it wouldn't be.
Well, they're not. Yeah, exactly. So you get one whole division in the AFC, and then one division you get the corresponding place, and that so you play 5 games against the AFC,
Gotcha.
essentially.
Okay.
But just looking here, so like Buffalo road game, Packers road game, Chiefs road game. Chargers, who we'll see, but playoff team.
You're not terrible.
It's not a home field advantage for them, but road game, and they should be better. You would think a second year. Although Herbert is kind of his stock is dropping precipitously in my eyes, but Vikings road game. You got the Lions at home, which will be good. Denver at home, which will be good, especially if it's a 1:00 game. Rams home at Tampa again for like the 60th straight year, so that's always a problem.
They have trouble with them. And Washington
will be good, and then Dallas will be better, barring injuries. But so yeah, they should be. We're talking months ahead. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't be a playoff team. But to say they're 100% going to win, that they're probably the best team in the division. But are they going to go back to? I wouldn't bet them right now as the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. That's for sure.
Over under there is 10.5 for me.
Yeah,
it's reasonable. I might go 11.5 just because I figured the over would get hammered by people if I was making that as a book. But
probably, but I mean, I know if I'm betting, if you're giving me 11.5, I'm doing under.
Yeah, sure.
You win 11 games in that schedule, that's good.
I
already bet the 49ers. They're getting the last place schedule. 16. They're 16-1. They had bad luck and injuries this year. I just think, that 16-1 for them with a last place schedule, I think.
Yeah, you gotta see what it seems like Samuel's on his way out, so I'm sure they'll bring somebody else in, but you see who they swap out.
He hasn't been anything. I mean, they have if Ayuk's back, the Pearsall, his whole year was screwed up last year, and Jennings might be their best receiver.
Yeah. I mean, really, it comes down. This will be a make or break year for Purdy because after coming off a bad year. But I mean, really, the two biggest pieces for him, it's McCaffrey and it's the left tackle, who I can't think of right
Williams,
now. Yeah, the left tackle. So who's like 38 years old, so he doesn't have much time left. But
they probably have to draft line.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of which, let's say all things being equal, most of this roster is back. Of course, it won't be 100%, but what on this team would you add? Like, what do you think? What position? Do you need depth?
To replace Lane Johnson at some point.
Yeah. He's got 2, probably at the most, years left. So you need your future right tackle. Look, Goddard played well in the playoffs, but I don't know if he's your long-term guy there. So I think, if you like Calcaterra, you got to get another tight end. And then, they're so young on defense. They got the youngest defense in the league, right? So it's hard to say. You can always use a lineman on either side of the ball. You can always use a decent cornerback. I get some depth at linebacker, obviously, with the injuries concerned. But, I mean, the linebacker is where your hole is right now because you don't have Ball under contract and Dean is not available to start the year. So that's where you got to look at. And you're probably going to need to draft a running back because Gainwell, I think, is a free agent, so he may not be around.
Yeah. Plus, Barkley's going to be 29.
Barkley will be 29. You can't expect him to be here 5 years in line. But, the line, they still have, Smith is going to be in his third year. Hunt has been playing well. If he's a contributor, he's going to be in his second year.
Yeah.
Your other guys are young, so you have youth there.
Well, here's the other thing. If you're going to let Milton Williams go, you probably need a D-tackle.
You would absolutely have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody and their mother in the city or the Northeast Philly at least wants them to draft a Penn State tight end in the first round.
That guy's a monster.
So yeah. I don't even know if he drafted, but or they want the Eagles to trade up to draft Abdul or whatever, who's going to be like the top 2 pick. But
draft the first,
yeah,
he's going to be the first pick, and then the tight end is not going past like middle.
I don't think he's going to be 32, so I don't see Howie moving up in the draft. If anything, I will be shocked if they pick in the first round. That's a spot to move out and trade down for him always. So,
do they have stacked picks in any round at all, or is it just one per round at this point?
I think they still have a couple out there, but let me pull it up while we talk. Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they didn't get that second round pick for Hassan Reddick, so that's not going to cash this year.
Well, if you trade Huff, you'll probably get like a 5th round pick or something.
You might be lucky to get a 7 for him with that contract. I mean, I don't know how much of it is locked up, but I mean, I don't know who's gonna want to spend that. Let's see, 32nd pick, obviously, and where are they picking? Yeah, so they have 3. So 1 pick in 1 through 4 and 3 5s.
Okay.
So, you can move around in 2nd and 3rd or whatever, or, 4th. And I keep forgetting, I mean, Trotter played a little bit at the end of the year. I don't trust him to be a full-time player, but he played well on special teams, so maybe he gets some reps with Dean being out, for the start of the year. But as a 4th or 5th round pick, whatever he was, I mean, you got contribution out of him, which is all you can expect, even if it's special teams from pick that late in the draft.
And I think for like a Super Bowl team, and other than you're going to lose your coordinator, or you have lost your coordinator, some of the guys you mentioned, they're not really going to turn over too much. I mean, they're going to be in pretty good shape next year and for the foreseeable future, mainly because of the fact that a lot of their players in defense are young, and you don't really even need to pay them anytime soon. So cap wise too, I think it's they're in a really good situation right now.
All right, let's move on because we have one more segment before we end this show, and that is our contest that we did last week, our prop contest. I have to admit, I did pretty well. I almost went 5 for 5. So I did win the contest. I had a profit of $169.03. I went 4-1. The only loss I had was Mahomes' rushing yards, which he had 25. I needed him to get 30 there, so that was a loss, $20. I did predict that they would key on Barkley, so I had under in his rushing yards. So for that, I won $38.18. I did predict that Hurts would have to throw the ball, so I had Hurts over in passing. I won that for $37.85. I hit my Devontae Smith touchdown bet, so that was a $71 winner. And then I had George Karlaftis for a sack, so that was $42 winner. So all in all, I profited $169.03. Meeker came in second at minus $10, so you lost $10. But you went 1-4. All you guys went 1-4, but Meeker hit the biggest bet. So his Barkley touchdown in both halves, lost. He did hit his 2-point conversion, so he won $70 with that. Hurts, first touchdown of the game, second touchdown, Kelsey. So he got Hurts with the first touchdown.
Yeah.
He did not get Kelsey.
I was into it at some point, but that's it.
I think if they would have been playing till now, Kelsey wouldn't have scored. So that was a loss. Butker,
Nope.
10 points.
Nope.
He got
Did not get on the field.
that many points. 0. Chera, a loss. And then the score, which again, you should have took that $20 and went and played the lottery.
I had the 22.
Should just bet KC total
That's
points
22
straight.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a way you could do that because, Chalky, the day that we put this together, the DraftKings allowed you to use the slide for the score,
Mhm.
but I didn't bet it the day that we had the contest. I had to try and find the score to bet the score on game day, which was like the worst thing to try and figure out because like there was a million scores to pick, but they had the way that you can pick each team and, pick the score. But the odds on picking each team to score the amount of points I said was less than 18,000 or whatever crazy number it was. And I almost did it. I at least would have hit the Chiefs because they had the Chiefs at 22. So.
Yep. But you didn't. You lost. Chalky came in second with a loss of $30.20. He also went 1-4. Devontae Smith, 80-plus yards, was not a winner. He finished with 69, I believe.
Yeah, I slid that too far. It's like the guy that climbs the mountain. The Price is Right. He went a little too far, fell off.
He fell off the cliff. Yeah. Mahomes first quarter 15+ rushing yards.
He ran for about 100 behind the line, but he couldn't cross the line.
Chris Jones, 2 sacks.
Got hurt. Was not a factor.
Not a factor. Blankenship, 1 interception. Did not happen.
Wrong exciting white D-back to.
What you should have did a 2-sack Milton Williams.
Yes,
bet.
that would have been.
You had 1 sack, and you won $49.80 there, but you lost $80 with your losers, so you lost $30.20. And then Tommy lost $39.60. He went 1-4 as well. Chiefs first drive field goal did not happen. Devontae Smith most receiving yards almost happened. I think he finished second to
Worthy.
Yeah, Worthy had $150 or something in the end. So.
Yeah. And it's crazy because Worthy was my other touchdown bet, so I did hit a parlay with those. I actually did well in the game with props. I didn't pick the game.
If we weren't limited, if we did 10 at $10 something, Worthy over 100 yards would have been something I looked at.
I was torn between either Devontae Smith or Worthy touchdown on this, but I parlayed them, so I hit that. Elliott, so his win was Elliott over 8 points, so he won $40.40 there. Barkley plus 120 yards was a loss, and then Ojumu sack. He's like the only guy I think on the
He was close. He was close. He was almost I think he should have got like a half at least, but they gave it the full one to Sweat. No, he didn't get anything, but like he was close on one of the Sweat ones, and they gave it all to Sweat.
Yeah. So he lost $39.60. So that was fun. Again, did well there. Didn't do well betting the game overall. So, but I did well with the props. I actually profited because of the props. So it's a pretty good prop game.
I bet 14 different bets in this game and ended up losing $9. Like, how do you bet 14 bets and come up with $9 loss? It's ridiculous.
I mean, if you bet $1 on every one, you're not going to lose that much. So
yeah, they were all $10 $50 bets, and I still lost $9.
If you want to, Chalky could put them up to show everybody what a timestamp.
If you email them to me, yeah, sure, absolutely.
If you like to. But all right, guys, I think that's it. So we were discussing this. We may take a hiatus next week. We may take a week off and then come back possibly with a trivia contest the week after. So we're going to reach out to Walt, see what he could do as far as coming up with some questions for us. See if Meeker can get out of the basement in the trivia contest, basement, which he's currently in. So that's it, guys.
I think Meeker might have been relegated. Like we might need to bring somebody else in to take his spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, he did finish way down. So if we have another performance like that, then I think you're on the hot seat.
Might have to be, yeah. Might have to bring Walden and have Meeker write the questions.
As I said, those questions were rigged. on that.
Yeah,
contest.
of course.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Walt knew
All right, guys.
how my answers would be, especially with baseball. I'm just like, oh, Meeker would definitely take this guy as the most hits in 2000.
We had 2 baseball questions.
Yeah, and that was the one that I
You're
missed right
supposed
away.
to miss baseball, right?
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying too.
Walt actually admitted it. He goes, "I knew you would have taken him." That was his comment. So
Okay.
he's a sneaky
All right,
guy.
guys.
But you also could have got the answers, so that's your fault for not cheating when you
Yeah,
could.
sure.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't cheating. He didn't tell me the question.
No, but you could have, right? There was an offer made, if I remember correctly.
There was no offer.
Yeah, he was like, "You get in the fantasy league or something."
There was an offer.
Yeah, it's on tape. I mean, we could roll the tape back.
Yeah.
Wait, but before we go, I mean, look, I'm an Eagles fan. This is great, but how great of a week does it have to be for Meeker when his favorite team wins the Super Bowl in his other favorite team's stadium? Like, that's got to be.
What?
Yeah. There's a lot of talk, Meeker, about you
My
going to the
favorite team.
parade.
Well,
No, there's no parade for me.
You at the parade. Yes, there will be.
There will not be a parade for me.
You better disguise yourself if you're going to the parade.
I'm just wondering if Kellen Moore just kept his bags there, just said, all right, well, won the Super Bowl, might as well just stay here and find a place down in the French Quarter.
I don't know. Walt was saying some stuff about
Walt.
you're probably going to be going to the parade and this and that. So
Mountain of misinformation, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say.
I don't know about that. All right.
All right.
All right. Episode 146, Broad Street Hustle. We'll probably see you in 2 weeks. So have a nice 2 weeks.